Science Officer Kelmyron stared at his display screen in complete disbelief. The readings from the human ship made no logical sense according to everything the galactic community knew about intelligent life. He ran the scan 3 more times, but the results remained the same. Commander Vexstar approached his station. "What is wrong, Kelmyron? You look like you have seen something impossible, sir. These readings cannot be accurate according to our data. The humans are living and working in conditions that should kill them within minutes, yet they appear to be thriving." Vexstar studied the display. The scan showed the interior of the human ship in perfect detail. The corridors were barely wide enough for 2 beings to pass. The ceiling height would force most species to crouch. The air recycling systems were working at maximum capacity just to maintain breathable atmosphere. "Show me their living quarters," Vexstar ordered. The display changed to reveal sleeping areas that looked more like storage compartments. Each human had a space roughly the size of a large coffin. They slept on thin mattresses with minimal privacy. The temperature was kept low to conserve energy, and the air had a metallic taste from the recycling systems by the stars. Whispered Communications Officer Zeppelin, "How do they maintain their sanity in such spaces? Most species would develop severe psychological problems within days, but the humans in the scan appeared perfectly comfortable. They had personalized their tiny spaces with pictures and small belongings. They moved through the cramped corridors with easy familiarity. They gathered in common areas that would be considered overcrowded by galactic standards, yet showed no signs of stress." Kelmyron continued his analysis. "Sir, I have completed the atmospheric readings. The humans are breathing air that contains higher levels of carbon dioxide than most species can tolerate. The oxygen content is lower than optimal. The humidity is maintained at levels that would be uncomfortable for nearly all known life forms, and yet," Vexstar observed, "they function normally, more than normally, sir. They appear to be operating at peak efficiency. The scans show that their bodies have adapted to these conditions. Their blood carries oxygen more effectively. Their lungs process the thin air without difficulty. Their skin handles the low humidity naturally." Dr. Yulkis joined them at the science station. "I have been analyzing their medical data, Commander." "What?" "I have found defies explanation. Tell me," Vexstar said, though he was beginning to suspect he would not like the answer. "The humans have biological systems that allow them to survive in conditions that would kill most beings. Their hearts can continue functioning even with massive blood loss. Their brains can operate on reduced oxygen for extended periods. Their bones are designed to handle impacts that would shatter normal skeletal structures." The medical officer brought up more detailed scans. "Sir, look at their muscle fiber density. It is nearly twice what we would consider normal. Their reflexes are enhanced for rapid response to danger. Their eyes can see in light levels that would leave most species functionally blind, but that is not the most disturbing discovery." Dr. Yulkis continued, "The humans appear to have redundant systems for critical functions. If one organ fails, another can take over. Their bodies can continue operating even with damage that would be instantly fatal to other species." Vexstar felt a chill run through his tall frame. "Show me their weapon systems." The display changed to reveal the human ship's armaments. What they saw made the entire bridge crew step back in alarm. The ship carried enough firepower to destroy vessels 10 times its size. The weapons were designed for maximum destruction with little regard for energy efficiency or crew safety. "Sir, these weapons draw power directly from the main reactor. If they fire all systems simultaneously, the energy drain could overload their entire ship, yet their tactical computers show firing patterns that do exactly that. They are willing to destroy their own vessel to eliminate an enemy." Vexstar said quietly, "That appears to be correct, sir, but it gets worse. The humans have detailed procedures for ramming enemy ships. They have protocols for overloading their reactor to create massive explosions. They have plans for fighting even after their ship is crippled and life support has failed." Navigator Threadaus was analyzing the tactical data. "Sir, I have reviewed their battle records. The humans consistently engage enemies with superior numbers and firepower. They seem to prefer fighting against impossible odds. Their victory rate in these situations is statistically impossible." Explain, Vexstar ordered. "The humans use tactics that no other species would consider. They sacrifice parts of their ship to damage the enemy. They accept casualties that would cause most species to surrender immediately. They continue fighting until either they are victorious or completely destroyed. There appears to be no middle ground. Colmarin brought up more scanning data, Commander. I have analyzed their training programs. The humans practice fighting in conditions that simulate massive ship damage. They train for scenarios where most of their crew is killed or wounded. They prepare for situations where their weapons are damaged and their life support is failing. They volunteer for this training, Dr. Yulkis added. The scans show that participation in these dangerous exercises is considered an honor. Individual humans compete for the opportunity to face potentially lethal training situations. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. This information painted a picture of a species unlike anything in their databases. Most civilized beings had evolved beyond their primitive violent instincts. They fought when necessary but always sought peaceful solutions first. The humans appeared to have taken a different evolutionary path. They had retained their capacity for violence while developing advanced technology. They had turned warfare into a science and conflict into an art. Formsir Zephlin said quietly, I am detecting something else in there. Communications. The humans are not just prepared for battle, they appear to be looking forward to it. Show me. Vexstar commanded. The communication intercepts revealed conversations that chilled the alien observers. Human crew members discussed upcoming missions with enthusiasm, even when intelligence reports indicated heavy casualties were expected. They joked about previous battles where they had been outnumbered and outgunned. They planned tactics that assumed significant losses but focused on maximizing damage to the enemy. In one recorded conversation, Captain Park Day was briefing his officers about a patrol mission. Intelligence suggests we may encounter organized resistance. He said the enemy has superior numbers and advanced weapons. This should be interesting. His officers responded with what could only be described as excitement. They began planning battle strategies that involved using their ship as bait. They discussed acceptable casualty rates and backup plans that assumed their vessel might be destroyed. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to view these challenges as opportunities for professional growth rather than threats to their survival. Commander Kelmyron said, his voice barely above a whisper, I believe we have discovered why the humans are so different from other species. Their evolutionary path has been unique. How so? Vexstar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Every other species in the galaxy evolved in environments that eventually became stable. They developed intelligence as a way to avoid conflict and danger. The humans appeared to have evolved in conditions where conflict and danger were constant. They developed intelligence as a way to become better at warfare. The implications of this discovery were staggering. The galaxy was filled with species that had grown beyond their primitive origins. They had learned to cooperate and seek peaceful solutions to problems. They had developed technology to make life easier and safer. The humans had developed technology to make warfare more effective. They had learned cooperation as a way to become more dangerous to their enemies. They had retained the instincts of apex predators while gaining the tools of advanced civilization. As the scanning continued, the alien crew realized they were not just observing another spacefaring species. They were watching something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had turned evolutionary pressure into evolutionary advantage. A species that had become more dangerous as they became more intelligent. The humans aboard the Horizon continued their daily routines, completely unaware that their existence was rewriting everything the galaxy thought it knew about the nature of intelligent life. Commander Vexstar called an emergency meeting in the main conference room of the Void Seeker. His senior officers filed in quietly, each carrying data tablets filled with the disturbing information they had gathered from scanning the human ship. The room felt heavy with unspoken fear. Take your positions, Vexstar said as he activated the main display screen. What we have discovered today will change everything we thought we knew about intelligent life in the galaxy. Science Officer Kelmyron was the first to speak. Commander, the biological data we have collected defies every model of evolutionary development in our databases. The humans have not evolved beyond their primitive survival instincts. They have refined them. Show them the physical analysis, Vexstar ordered, the display filled with detailed scans of human anatomy. What the officers saw made several of them shift uncomfortably in their seats. Human muscle fiber was designed for explosive power. Human bones were structured to handle Extreme impact human organs were positioned to maximize survival even with severe damage. Dr. Yulkus stood to address the group. Fellow officers, what we are observing is unprecedented. The human body appears to have been designed by evolution specifically for combat. Their cardiovascular system can function with massive blood loss. Their nervous system actually improves performance under extreme stress. Their skeletal structure can absorb damage that would cripple most beings, but it gets worse. She continued. The humans have multiple backup systems for critical functions. If their primary organs are damaged, secondary systems activate automatically. They can continue fighting even with injuries that would instantly kill most species. Navigator Threnaus accessed his tactical analysis data. Commanders, I have reviewed their combat records. The patterns are unlike anything we have encountered. Most species fight defensively, seeking to minimize casualties and achieve victory with minimal risk. The humans fight differently, he continued. They actively seek out dangerous situations. They prefer engaging enemies with superior numbers and technology. They use tactics that require accepting heavy casualties to achieve their objectives. Give U.S.-specific examples. Vexstar requested Threens brought up battle records from the human databases in their encounter with the Proxima pirates. The humans were outnumbered 8-1, facing vessels with superior firepower instead of retreating. They divided their single ship into separate combat sections and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. The strategy required exposing each section to concentrated enemy fire. The humans accepted a 70% casualty rate but managed to destroy the entire pirate fleet. Their tactical computers show this was considered a successful engagement. Communications officer Zephelin added her analysis of intercepted transmissions. The humans discussed these battles with what can only be described as satisfaction. They used terms like challenging and exciting when referring to situations that would terrify most species. She played several recorded conversations where human crew members laughed while describing close calls with death. They talked about missions where survival was unlikely, as if they were discussing recreational activities. The most disturbing aspect, she said, is their attitude towards sacrifice. The humans have detailed protocols for crew members to give their lives to protect others. These protocols are not emergency measures. They are standard operating procedures that every human is expected to follow without question. Engineering officer Vactal had been analyzing the human ship systems. Commanders, the human vessel itself reflects their combat philosophy. The entire design prioritizes offensive capability over crew safety. He displayed technical schematics. The reactor core operates at temperatures that would melt the hull of most ships. The weapon systems draw power loads that risk overloading the entire electrical grid. The life support systems are designed for maximum efficiency rather than crew comfort. But most importantly, he continued, the ship has multiple self-destruct systems. The humans have at least 6 different ways to destroy their own vessel along with any enemy ships in the vicinity. These systems can be activated by any senior officer if the situation requires it. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The humans were not just willing to die in combat, they were prepared to take their enemies with them, even if it meant destroying themselves in the process. Vexstar stood and began pacing behind his chair. Officers, what we have discovered is a species that evolution has turned into the perfect warrior. They have retained every survival instinct from their primitive past while developing advanced technology to make those instincts more deadly. Dr. Yulkus brought up more biological data. Sir, I have analyzed their brain chemistry. The human nervous system produces chemicals during combat that not only eliminate pain but actually enhance physical performance. They become stronger, faster, and more resilient when facing mortal danger. Their bodies are designed to improve under stress. She continued, most species experience decreased performance when threatened. The humans experience increased performance. Their evolutionary response to danger is to become more dangerous. This explains their tactical preferences. Threnaus added, they seek out dangerous situations because those are the conditions where they function at peak efficiency. Other species avoid risk. The humans are attracted to Icalmer and accessed historical data from the human databases. I have been studying their species development. The humans evolved on a world they call Earth. The environmental conditions there explain everything we have Observed, a display showed data about the human homeworld that made. The alien officers gasped in shock. Earth was classified as an extreme danger environment by every standard in their databases. The planet was filled with predators, natural disasters, and environmental hazards that would make most worlds uninhabitable. The humans did not just survive on this world, Kelmyran said. They became the dominant species. They outcompeted creatures that were larger, stronger, and naturally better armed. They did it through teamwork, intelligence, and absolute refusal to surrender. But here is the most significant discovery, he continued. The humans had developed technology capable of destroying their entire planet. Then, instead of using these weapons against each other, they somehow agreed to stop fighting among themselves and turned their attention to exploring space. They took their warrior instincts and pointed them outward toward the stars, Dr. Yulke said quietly. Exactly. Vextar confirmed, and now they are spreading through the galaxy, carrying with them evolutionary adaptations that make them nearly impossible to defeat in combat. Communications officer Zephelin brought up intercepted strategic communications. Sir, the humans are not just explorers or traders. They are establishing military bases throughout their region of space. They are building a network of defensive positions that could protect entire star systems. But their concept of defense is different from ours, she continued. Their defensive strategies involve meeting enemies far from their territories and destroying them completely. They do not seek to repel invaders, they seek to eliminate them. The meeting continued for hours as more data was analyzed. Each new piece of information reinforced the same terrifying conclusion: the humans were not another peaceful species seeking their place in the galactic community. They were apex predators with advanced technology. Spreading through space, they had somehow evolved beyond the normal patterns of intelligent development. Most species became less violent as they became more intelligent. The humans had become more efficient at violence while maintaining their technological advancement. As the meeting concluded, Commander Vextar realized that his routine scanning mission had uncovered something that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans were not just another entry in the species database. They were a force that could change everything. The galaxy had been peaceful for centuries because most species had evolved beyond their primitive violent instincts. Now there was a species that had retained those instincts while developing the technology to project them across interstellar distances. The implications were staggering and terrifying. The humans were coming, and they brought with them a capacity for warfare that the galaxy had never seen before. The final phase of scanning began as the alien crew prepared to compile their complete analysis of the human warship. What they discovered in those last hours would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The deepest scans revealed secrets about human nature that no other species in the galaxy possessed. Science. Officer Kelmyran was running detailed analysis on human evolutionary history when his console began displaying data that made his 4 eyes widen in shock. Commander, he called out urgently. You need to see this immediately. Vexter moved quickly to the science station. What have you found, sir? I have accessed the human databases regarding their home planet Earth. The environmental data explains everything we have observed about their species. The humans evolved on what can only be described as a death world. The main display screen filled with information that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. Earth was a planet where everything seemed designed to kill everything else. The gravity was higher than most habitable worlds. The atmospheric pressure would crush beings from low-gravity environments. The weather patterns included storms that could devastate entire continents. But that was only the beginning. Kelmyran continued. The planet was filled with predatory species that hunted in coordinated groups. Diseases that could jump between species and kill entire populations. Natural disasters that could change the climate overnight, and somehow the humans not only survived in this environment, they became the dominant species. Dr. Yulkis joined them at the science station studying the biological records. Sir, the predators on Earth were incredible. The humans competed with creatures that had natural weapons like claws, fangs, and venom. They faced animals that were faster, stronger, and better equipped for killing than early humans. So how did they survive? Vextar asked, though he suspected the answer would disturb him. They developed teamwork and intelligence. As weapons, Dr. Yolkes replied, the humans learned to coordinate their attacks, to use tools, and to never give up no matter how desperate the situation became. They turned their weakness into strength by working together, the data showed human ancestors. Hunting creatures 10 times their size using nothing but primitive weapons and coordination, they tracked predators across vast distances. They developed strategies that required some humans to sacrifice themselves so others could survive. They learned to fight as a unified force, but the most remarkable discovery was still to come. Kelmarin accessed more historical records. Commander, the humans did not stop evolving when they developed intelligence. They continued to adapt, becoming more efficient at warfare while simultaneously developing advanced technology. Show me the timeline, Vextar ordered. The display revealed thousands of years of human history marked by constant conflict. The humans had fought each other in wars that spanned continents. They had developed weapons of incredible destructive power. They had created military strategies that other species would consider impossible. Yet through all of this warfare, they had also advanced scientifically. They had learned to heal injuries that would be fatal to other species. They had developed materials that could withstand extreme conditions. They had created technologies that allowed them to survive in environments where most life could not exist. Navigation Officer Threnaus was analyzing human expansion patterns. Sir, the humans have been spreading through space for less than 2 centuries, but their growth rate is unprecedented. They are not just exploring, they are claiming territory and building defensive networks. He brought up star charts showing human colonies and military bases. The pattern was unlike anything seen from other species. The humans were not simply settling habitable worlds, they were establishing strategic positions that could control entire regions of space. Their expansion strategy assumes they will face hostile resistance. He continued, every human colony is also a military outpost. Every trade route is protected by armed vessels. Every diplomatic mission includes military advisors. This is not normal exploration behavior, Dr. Yolkes observed. Most species expand peacefully, seeking new resources and trading opportunities. The humans are expanding like a military force, securing territory for future conflicts. Communications Officer Zephyrin had been monitoring human transmissions. Sir, I have intercepted strategic communications between human commands. The discussions are unlike anything we have recorded from other species. She played several transmissions where human military leaders discussed scenarios involving massive fleet battles. They talked about acceptable loss rates that would horrify other species. They planned campaigns that assumed their enemies would fight to the death because that was how humans themselves fought. In one recorded conversation, Admiral Kim was briefing her officers about potential conflicts with unknown alien species. She said, we must assume that any species we encounter will eventually become hostile. Our expansion strategy should account for the possibility of total war. Her officers agreed. Without question, they began discussing weapon development programs and ship construction projects designed for conflicts that had not yet begun. They planned as if warfare was inevitable, rather than something to be avoided. The most chilling part, Zephyrin said, was their casualty projections. The humans plan for battles where they might lose entire fleets. They have contingency plans for scenarios where major colonies are destroyed. They discussed these possibilities as acceptable costs of expansion. Meanwhile, aboard the human ship, Captain Park Day was addressing his crew about their current mission. He stood before his officers in the main briefing room, completely unaware that alien observers were recording his every word. Our intelligence reports indicate increased pirate activity in the Outer Rim systems, he said calmly. The enemy has been using new tactics and appears to have access to advanced weapons. They have been attacking merchant vessels and avoiding direct confrontation with military ships. Lieutenant Commander Yang Min raised her hand. Sir, that suggests they are afraid to engage us directly. Captain Park Day smiled, showing teeth that would have seemed predatory to many alien species. That is correct. They have learned from previous encounters that fighting human warships is expensive. However, we cannot allow them to continue threatening civilian traffic. So what are our orders? Asked Chief of Security Major Li Tan. We are going to make ourselves an attractive target, Park Day replied. We will enter the patrol area using standard merchant shipping routes. When the pirates attack thinking we are an easy target, we will demonstrate why that assumption is incorrect. The human officers responded with enthusiasm rather than concern. They began planning tactics that involved deliberately exposing their ship to enemy fire. They discussed using their vessel as bait to draw pirates into disadvantageous positions. They talked about acceptable damage levels and crew casualty rates. The aliens observing this briefing could not understand the human attitude. Most species would consider such a mission to be a dangerous last resort. The humans were treating it as routine patrol duty. They seemed to view the prospect of combat as a professional challenge rather than a threat to their survival. What the alien observers were witnessing was something unprecedented in galactic history. They were watching a species that had somehow retained all of their evolutionary programming for warfare while developing the technology to project that capability across interstellar distances. Dr. Yulka summarized their findings for Commander Vexstar. Sir, the humans represent something completely new in our experience. They have not evolved beyond their primitive survival instincts. Instead, they have refined those instincts and enhanced them with advanced technology. They are not just another spacefaring species, she continued. They are apex predators with starships. They are a warrior race that has learned to fight on a galactic scale. Their expansion through space is not exploration, it is conquest. The realization hit the alien crew like a physical blow. The peaceful galaxy they knew was about to change forever. The humans were coming, and they brought with them a capacity for warfare that no existing species could match. They had turned evolution itself into a weapon. As the scanning operation neared completion, Commander Vexstar faced a decision that would affect every civilized world in the galaxy. The information they had gathered could not be kept secret. The galactic community needed to know what was spreading through the stars, but he also realized that this knowledge would change everything. The age of peaceful coexistence was ending. The humans had arrived, and with them came the return of something the galaxy thought it had left behind forever: total war. Commander Vexstar stood alone in his private quarters, staring out at the stars through the observation port. The scanning of the human warship was complete, and the data his crew had gathered would change the galaxy forever. He had spent the last hour reviewing every piece of information they had collected, and the conclusions were inescapable. The humans were not just another spacefaring species. They were something unprecedented in galactic history. They were apex predators with advanced technology spreading through space like a plague of warfare. The peaceful coexistence that had defined interstellar relations for centuries was about to end. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Come, Vexstar said without turning from the window. Science Officer Kelmyron entered carrying a data tablet. Commander, I have completed the final analysis. The compiled report is ready for transmission. Set it down on my desk. Vexstar replied, I will review it shortly, sir. Kelmyron hesitated. There is something else you should know. I have been monitoring communications from other vessels in this sector. Several ships have reported unusual readings when scanning human vessels. They are all requesting information about human capabilities. How many ships? Vexstar asked, turning to face his Science Officer. 17. Confirmed, sir, including 3 military vessels from the Central Worlds Alliance and 2 exploration ships from the Rim territories. Everyone who encounters humans seems to have the same reaction. They scan them, then immediately request more information. Vexstar moved to his desk and activated his personal communication system. Get me a priority channel to Galactic Command. I need to speak with Admiral Zelthic immediately. The communication link connected. After a few moments, Admiral Zelthic appeared on the screen, his ancient features showing curiosity. Commander Vexstar, I was not expecting to hear from you. Your scanning mission is not scheduled to report for another month. Admiral, I am requesting permission to issue a galaxy-wide alert based on critical intelligence we have gathered about a species called Humanzelfak. Leaned forward in his chair. Humans, I have heard reports about them from several sectors. What have you discovered, sir? The humans represent a threat unlike anything in our databases. They are not a normal spacefaring species seeking peaceful contact. They are warriors who have retained their evolutionary programming for combat while developing advanced technology. Explained. Zelthic ordered. Vexstar transmitted the scanning data. Admiral, they evolved on a death world that shaped them into perfect killing machines. Their bodies are designed for surviving extreme damage. Their minds actually improve performance under stress. Their entire culture revolves around warfare and conflict. Admiral studied the data in silence for several minutes. When he looked up, his expression was grim. Commander, this information cannot be accurate. No species develops intelligence while retaining such primitive instincts, sir. I have triple-checked every reading. The humans are unlike anything we have encountered. They fight with a totality that borders on the incomprehensible. They prefer engaging enemies with superior numbers. They accept casualty rates that would cause other species to surrender immediately. They are spreading through our region of space. Vexstar continued. They are not exploring, they are conquering. They establish military bases disguised as colonies. They arm merchant vessels like warships. They treat every diplomatic contact as a potential military threat. Admiral Zelphic was quiet for a long moment. Commander, I am authorizing you to issue a galaxy-wide warning. Include all of your scanning data and recommend that all vessels avoid contact with human ships unless absolutely necessary. What about the Galactic Council, sir? Should we request an emergency session? Not yet, the Admiral replied. We need more information from other sources, but begin preparing a full report. The Council will want to review everything we know about these humans. The communication ended, and Vexstar turned to Kelmyron. Prepare the warning broadcast. Include detailed scans of their ship, biological data on their species, and tactical analysis of their capabilities. I want every vessel and planetary government within 100 light-years to receive this information. Clanon began working at the communication console. Sir, what should we say about their intentions? Tell them the truth, Vexstar replied. The humans are not like other species. They are predators with starships. Avoid them unless you are prepared for war. An hour later, the emergency broadcast began transmitting across the galaxy. The message reached merchant vessels exploring ships, military patrols, and planetary defense networks. Within hours, the information was being relayed to every civilized world in the region, to all vessels and planetary governments. This is Commander Vexstar of the Galactic Survey Service aboard the vessel Void Seeker. We have completed a comprehensive analysis of human military capabilities and must issue the following urgent warning. His crew gathered on the bridge as he continued the broadcast that would echo through space for generations. Humans are not like other species in our galactic community. They are apex predators who have developed advanced technology while retaining their evolutionary design for warfare. Do not engage them in conflict unless you are prepared for total war. The broadcast included detailed evidence showing human physiological adaptations for combat, their enhanced cardiovascular systems that could function with massive trauma, their nervous systems that improved performance under extreme stress, their skeletal structure designed to absorb damage that would kill most beings. We have observed humans living and working in conditions that would be considered torture by most species standards. Yet they not only survive in these environments, they thrive in them. They have adapted to extremes that make them incredibly difficult to defeat. The tactical analysis was even more disturbing. Human battle doctrine assumed massive casualties were acceptable if they achieved their objectives. They used strategies that required sacrificing parts of their forces to destroy enemy positions. They continued fighting even when their ships were crippled and their life support was failing. Most importantly, the broadcast continued. Humans do not just fight to win, they fight to ensure their enemies can never threaten anyone again. They wage war with a completeness that most species cannot comprehend. They will sacrifice everything to eliminate a threat. The warning included specific recommendations for any vessels that encountered human ships. Avoid confrontation at all costs. Do not attempt to scan them without permission. Their defensive systems are designed to respond to perceived threats with overwhelming force. If contact is unavoidable, approach them with extreme caution. Humans interpret defensive preparations as signs of hostile intent. They prefer to strike first rather than wait to be attacked. Their concept. Captain Parkday sat in his command chair aboard the Unzians Horizon reviewing the morning reports. The ship had been on patrol for 3 months, and his crew was performing better than expected. The scars on the ship's hull told the story of their last major battle against pirates near the Centauri system. They had been outnumbered 5-1 but had emerged victorious. Lieutenant Kim Nari looked up from her sensor station. Captain, I am detecting scanning beams from that alien vessel. The scans are very detailed. They are reading our entire ship structure down to the molecular level. Park Day smiled, showing teeth that would have seemed predatory to many alien species. Let them scan, he said calmly. They might learn something useful about Earth ships. What the aliens scanning them could not understand was that Captain Park Day was not concerned about them learning his ship's secrets. In fact, he hoped they would share the information with other species. It might make future conflicts shorter. Deep in the medical bay of the Horizon, Dr. Lihana was treating the wounded from their last engagement. She worked quickly and efficiently, moving between patients who would have been considered dead by most galactic medical standards. Sergeant Cho Min lay on one table with injuries that had destroyed most of his internal organs. Yet he was conscious and asking when he could return to duty. Doctor, how long before I can get back to my unit? He asked. Dr. Lihana checked his readings. 3 more days, Sergeant. Your liver is almost finished growing back, and your lungs should be fully healed by then. This was normal conversation aboard a human warship. The aliens scanning them recorded every word, but could not believe what they were hearing. Humans routinely survived injuries that would kill most species instantly. They had backup systems for their backup systems. In the next bed, Private Song Yuna was recovering from blood loss that should have been fatal. She had lost 60% of her blood in the last battle, but continued fighting until the enemy was defeated. Now she was reading a book while new blood was being manufactured in her bone marrow. The alien scanners detected all of this, but their computers kept reporting errors. The readings had to be wrong. No species could survive such damage and remain functional. Down in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Cho Bin was performing routine maintenance on systems that would have terrified most alien engineers. The reactor core burned at temperatures hot enough to melt most known metals. The power conduits carried energy loads that should have destroyed them instantly. The weapon systems drew power that could light up entire cities. Yet Cho Bin worked in these conditions, wearing only standard coveralls. He had been doing this job for 15 years and considered it routine work. Around him, his engineering team crawled through spaces filled with radiation and extreme heat. They joked with each other as they worked, completely comfortable in an environment that would kill most beings in minutes. Hey, Cho Bin called to his assistant. Li Wu checked the plasma flow on Conduit 7. It looked a little unstable during the last weapons test. Li Wu crawled into a maintenance tube that was barely wide enough for his body. The tube was filled with energy that made the air glow blue. Most species would have needed full environmental suits and radiation protection. Li Wu wore gloves. Looks fine, boss, he called back. Just some carbon buildup from the last overload. I'll clean it out. This was another thing the aliens could not understand. Humans routinely overloaded their equipment beyond safe parameters. They pushed everything to its maximum capacity, then found ways to push it further when other species built safety margins into their technology. Humans built ways to bypass those safety margins when necessary. In the ship's mess hall, the crew was eating their evening meal. The food was processed protein and synthesized vegetables that barely qualified as nutrition by galactic standards. Most of it came from recycling systems that other species would find disgusting. Yet the humans ate with enthusiasm, talking and laughing as they consumed what amounted to survival rations. Corporal Park Jin was telling a story about their last battle. Hey, remember when those pirates thought they had us surrounded? He laughed. 8 ships against 1, and they still ran when we started shooting back. The other soldiers at his table joined in the laughter. They found it amusing that their enemies had expected them to surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. The concept of surrender seemed foreign to them. They talked about impossible odds like other species talked about the weather. Private Kim Yu mentioned casually that she was looking forward to their next mission, even though intelligence reports suggested they would be facing even worse odds. The entire table agreed that harder missions were more interesting. This attitude was being recorded by the alien scanners, but the data made no logical sense. Humans seemed to prefer dangerous situations. They volunteered for missions with casualty rates that should have made recruitment impossible. They competed for assignments that other species would consider suicide missions. In the ship's training areas, human soldiers were practicing combat techniques in their off-duty hours. They sparred with each other using weapons and tactics that would permanently injure most beings. The training was brutal and realistic because humans believed that easy training led to hard battle. Sergeant Major Hansu was leading a combat exercise that simulated fighting in a damaged ship with no life support. The soldiers wore minimal protection and fought in conditions that mimicked vacuum exposure. They moved through obstacles that would challenge most species while carrying heavy weapons and equipment. The exercise ended with half the participants simulating death or serious injury. The survivors helped carry the simulated wounded to safety, then immediately began discussing what they had learned from the experience. They showed no distress at the simulated casualties. Instead, they analyzed their mistakes and planned to train harder. This was perhaps the most disturbing thing the aliens observed. Humans treated massive casualties as learning experiences. They did not avoid situations that might result in death. Instead, they prepared for those situations and trained to function effectively even when everything went wrong. In his ready room, Captain Park Day was meeting with his senior officers to plan their next patrol route. Intelligence had reported increased pirate activity in the outer systems. The pirates were using new tactics and had better weapons than before. Commander, this could be dangerous, said his executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Young Min. The pirates have been attacking in larger groups, and they have heavy cruisers now. Park Day nodded. Good, he said. That means they are finally taking us seriously. It was getting boring fighting enemies who ran after the first exchanges. Officers agreed completely. They discussed tactics that involved deliberately drawing the pirates into ambush. They planned to use their ship as bait to lure enemy forces into disadvantageous positions. They talked about acceptable casualty rates and backup plans that assumed their ship might be heavily damaged or destroyed. What the aliens scanning them could not comprehend was that humans did not just accept risk. They embraced it. They turned disadvantages into advantages and made their enemies afraid to fight them. The scan continued throughout the day, and the alien observers recorded thousands of conversations and interactions. Every piece of data reinforced the same impossible conclusion. Humans were a species that had evolved not just to survive in dangerous conditions, but to thrive in them. They had turned warfare into an art form and violence into a tool for achieving peace. Their ship was not just a military vessel, it was a statement of their species' philosophy: fight hard enough and smart enough, and your enemies will eventually stop fighting. As the alien scanning beams penetrated deeper into the human ship, they began to understand that they were not observing just another spacefaring species. They were watching something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had somehow retained all of their predatory instincts while developing advanced technology. The humans aboard the Horizon went about their daily routines completely unaware that their mere existence was about to become the stuff of nightmares for hostile species throughout the galaxy. The massive alien ship called Void Seeker moved slowly through the dark, empty space between stars. Its hull was smooth and white like polished bone and stretched for 3 miles from front to back. Inside the ship, hundreds of tall gray beings worked at glowing control panels. Their 4 eyes never blinked as they watched the star charts and sensor readings. Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his scanning vessel. His long, thin fingers touched the control surface in front of him. The ship had been traveling through this sector of space for 6 months now, scanning every vessel that passed through their area. It was routine work, but important work. The Galactic Council needed to know about all the different species, and their ships today felt different, though. The sensors were picking up something unusual. Lieutenant Colvin turned from his station. His gray skin looked pale even for their species. Commander, we have a new contact on long-range sensors. It does not match any ship design in our database. Of Exter moved closer to the main display screen. What appeared there made him pause. The ship was long and angular, with a dark metal hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange marks covered its surface like scars from old battles. The vessel moved through space with purpose, but there was something about its energy readings that felt wrong. What species does it belong to? Vexstar asked. The sensor operator touched several controls unknown, so the computer cannot identify the design. The power signature is unlike anything we have recorded before. Vexstar studied the strange ship more carefully. It was smaller than many of the vessels they had scanned, but something about it made him feel uneasy. The way it moved through space reminded him of a hunting predator from his homeworld, something that was always ready to fight. Show me the ship classification, he ordered. The display changed to show technical readings. The unknown vessel was about 2,000 feet long with multiple weapon ports along its hull. The metal looked thick and heavy, built for taking damage. The engines glowed with a blue-white light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Sir, the communications officer spoke up. We are receiving a transmission from the vessel. Put it on the main speaker. Vextar's side of voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language none of them had heard before. The sounds were harsh and quick with sharp consonants. The universal translator worked for a moment, then displayed text on the screen. This is Captain Park Day of the United Nations ship Horizon. State your business in this sector. Vextar looked at his crew. United Nations, that meant this ship belonged to the species called humans. They had heard rumors about humans from other species but had never encountered them directly. The reports were confusing. Some said humans were peaceful traders. Others whispered that they were dangerous warriors. Open a channel. Vextar commanded. The communication link activated. Captain Park Day, this is Commander Vextar of the survey vessel Void Seeker. We are conducting routine scans of vessels in this sector for the Galactic Council database. May we proceed with our scanning protocol? There was a long pause before the human captain answered, you may scan our ship, Commander, but be aware that we are on patrol duty. Any hostile action will be met with appropriate response. The words sounded polite, but there was something in the human voice that made Vextar uncomfortable. It was calm, but underneath the calmness was something harder, something that suggested this Captain Park Day was not afraid of a fight. Very well, Captain, we will begin our scans now. They will take approximately 1 hour to complete. Understood, Commander. Horizon out. The communication ended, and Vextar turned to his science officer. Begin the deep scan protocol. I want detailed readings of their hull composition, weapon systems, life support, and crew complement. Science officer named Kelmyron activated. The scanning array, massive beams of energy, reached out from the Void Seeker toward the human ship. These beams could penetrate almost any material and record everything about a vessel, from its basic structure to the number of beings on board. The first readings appeared on the screen immediately, and Kelmyron made a sound of surprise. Commander, these readings are very unusual. What do you mean? Vextar asked, moving to look at the data. The human ship appears to be heavily armored with multiple layers of different metals. The weapon systems are drawing enormous amounts of power, more than most species would consider safe. The life support systems are running at what we would consider emergency levels, but the crew appears to be functioning normal. Vextar studied the readings more carefully. Show me the crew areas. The display changed to show the interior sections of the human ship. What they saw made several crew members step back in shock. The humans were living in spaces that looked like metal boxes. The corridors were narrow and cramped. The sleeping areas were tiny chambers barely large enough for one being. The work areas were filled with machinery that generated heat and noise. How do they survive in those conditions? Whispered the medical officer, Dr. Yulkis. Those spaces would drive most species insane within days, but the humans inside the ship moved through these areas like they were comfortable. The scanning beams showed them working at control stations, eating meals, and even sleeping peacefully in their tiny chambers. They showed no signs of stress or discomfort. Continue the scan, Vextar ordered, but his voice was quieter now. Something about what they were seeing bothered him. The deeper scans began to reveal more disturbing information. The human ship carried weapons that could destroy vessels much larger than itself. The power core operated at temperatures that should have melted the surrounding structure. The crew areas had radiation levels that would require protective suits for most galactic species. Commander Kelmyron said, his voice shaking slightly. I am detecting something very unusual about the humans themselves. What is it? Their biological readings, sir. They appear to be adapted for extreme conditions. Their blood carries more oxygen than normal. Their muscle density is much higher than average. And sir, there is something else. Vextar waited. They have redundant organs, Commander. Multiple systems that can take over if others fail. Their bodies appear to be designed for surviving massive damage. The bridge fell silent as the implications of this information sank in. The humans were not just another peaceful species exploring the galaxy. They were something else, something that had been shaped by forces that most civilized beings could not imagine. The scanning continued, and with each new piece of data, the alien crew became more uncomfortable. They discovered that the human ship carried enough weapons to fight a small war. The crew had trained for scenarios that involved massive casualties. They had procedures for continuing to function even if large parts of their ship were destroyed, but perhaps most disturbing of all was the attitude of the humans themselves. As the aliens watched through their scanning beams, they saw human crew members joking and laughing. While maintaining weapons that could kill thousands, they saw soldiers practicing combat techniques in their spare time. They saw officers planning battle strategies that assumed heavy losses but continued fighting. These humans did not just accept the possibility of death in combat. They seemed to embrace it as a natural part of their existence. Commander Vexstar realized that his routine scanning mission had uncovered something that would change everything. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not like other species. They were something far more dangerous, something that had evolved in ways that defied everything the galactic community thought they knew about. Intelligent life. The scan was only beginning, but already Vexstar knew that the data they were collecting would send shockwaves through every civilized world in the galaxy. Humans were not just another species to be cataloged and filed away. They were something unprecedented, something terrifying, and they were spreading through the stars.